All right, we're live. My camera looks a little nicer. I'm going to make sure my audio is good like I always do. I hope everyone is enjoying their summer. We are getting close. SEC Media Days are here. We're getting closer. Summer, we are getting close. SEC Media Days are here. Oh gosh, the camera looks so much better. I'm so ugly. I'm so sorry, everybody. Okay, great. Welcome to the voice of college football, Missouri Tigers. Let's go, baby. The Missouri Tigers are coming off 2 10-win seasons. The momentum is there, even though the recruiting this year has not been there. We'll talk about it, but like and subscribe. Come on, guys. Come on. Mizzou, we're building up, man. I used to run Bama. We're going to preview Alabama today. Build it up. Tell your friends if you want to come hang out. We're here every Monday night, 7 to kind of whenever I'm done talking. And then we'll be here after every post game on Saturday, except obviously the opening night game against our friends from Central Arkansas. We've already previewed Central Arkansas. We've previewed Kansas. We previewed UMass. We previewed Louisiana. And then we previewed South Carolina to start getting the SEC schedule. And now we're going to preview the Alabama Crimson Tide. But like and subscribe. You can listen to all our shows on Amazon, Spotify, and what's the other one? Apple. I have it right here in front of me. I catch our shows live. If you don't want to catch it on YouTube, like I know sometimes YouTube's weird. Whatever, YouTube is YouTube. Follow Mark over at the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers. Mark. Look, I'm going to say some things later where I'm like, I had forgotten about it. One big thing, because I was listening to some Bama stuff earlier. But you can follow Mark Rogers at the Voice of College Football, guys, coast to coast. The man knows his stuff. He is unbelievably intelligent when it comes to this sport. You can follow me on Twitter at Psych, and just overall intelligent guy. I'm not trying to suck up or anything. You can follow me on Twitter at PsychoZ50. You can see all my insane ramblings, especially as we get closer to the season. I'll probably tweet a lot as Eli talks on Thursday. I'm going to try and take my lunch break at work then. You can see my thoughts on Superman and all this other stuff that's going on in my life. But we're getting closer. The doldrums of summer are here. MLB All-Star Weekend's kind of and we've got SEC Media Days going on. So, but that's kind of the point where I'm all right, we're getting there. We're really getting there. But man, this is episode 32 of Missouri Tigers Live. And we only got to do a few more over the summer. And we're going to a lot of previews still to come. As a heads up, August, I believe it's 11th. I will not be here. I've got some family stuff I need to take care of. They warned me in advance, hey, we got to do this. So I will not be here for that date, unfortunately. But I will be here every week leading up to that and after, because I love doing this and I'm here. So let's see. What else did I want to touch on before we dive into what is the Alabama Crimson Tide? Okay. So want to check my sources. This is the Alabama preview. All my information comes from College Football Reference, Rock M Nation, Athlon Sports, and Lindy Sports SEC preview. So I get all my numbers, all my notes, and then I did listen to 247 Sports Summer School series with Bama 24/7, and I won't look it up, but I listened to a couple other videos just to kind of get obviously this isn't all off the dome. I wish it was. That'd be really cool. A lot of my Missouri stuff is off the dome, but it's nice to always listen to a lot of stuff, get refreshers as we come closer to the season. So getting into Alabama, last year Alabama goes 9-4. Not good enough. They come off, they look really good against Western Kentucky. It's Western Kentucky. God bless the Hilltoppers. They were good when I was younger. They're not so much anymore. Now, this is at the point I was doing Bama post games. So I do remember these games a little bit better. South Florida really struggled in that game. Really, 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 really struggled. Pulled away at the end, but that was not a close football game. Wisconsin, Tyler Van Dyke goes out on the first drive. They dominate. They play unbelievable football against Georgia for 2 quarters, and then Georgia crawls back into it, and then Ryan Williams. It's crazy that Ryan Williams makes that play, and he's still not the consensus wide receiver in his own class, and for good reason. Then they beat Georgia. The world, they're on fire. The world is their oyster, and they go to Vanderbilt and drop one to Diego Pavia. And there's some really good some video analysis of that game, but I don't think anybody expected them to lose that game. I certainly did. I didn't think they were going to lose it until they lost. You know what I mean? I remember doing post game for that one, and it was me and Jackson. We were just like, "What in the hell happened?" 418 total yards. Didn't force any turnovers. Jalen Milroe was good, but Diego Pavia 16 of 20 for 252, 2 touchdowns, and then he also ran for 56 yards. Just an unbelievable performance. Anyway, they go play South Carolina at home. They largely get outplayed by South Carolina. That was the game I was like, oh, the South Carolina team actually might be pretty good. Or maybe Alabama just really stinks. I'm not sure. Then they go to Tennessee. They play another dumpster fire of a game. They get to home place Missouri. They kill Missouri. We'll touch on that in a little bit. And then they play their best game of the year. They go to LSU and just steamroll them in Tiger Stadium. Good on them. I'm going to clean off my screen a little bit. There's a camera. There's a timer there. Destroy Mercer. They're still looking good for the playoff. Okay, it's not the Bama team that we are used to, but hey, they're going to make the playoff, and they certainly are going to have, we saw when they beat Georgia, they have the talent to knock off anybody. And then they go to Oklahoma and lay an absolute dud of a football game. Just a dud. They lose at OU, a bad OU team. It gets OU to a bowl game. And then they play Auburn, and they beat Auburn because they always beat Auburn at home. It's in Jordan-Hare. They have issues. They lose to Michigan in the bowl game. I'm not really too concerned about bowl games. But 9-3 in the regular season, 2 losses to 2 teams that wouldn't have made bowl games if they didn't beat Alabama. That's concerning. They lost to Tennessee on the road. That is what it is. But it's now year 2 for Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer, when he got hired, it was really interesting because I think when it was announced that Saban was retiring, my immediate thought was Dan Lanning. I thought Dan Lanning was going to be the guy, and then he stuck it out at Oregon, and good on him. And then they had a great year last year. I know they lost in the quarters to the national champs, but look, they went undefeated in their first year in the Big Ten. They kind of steamrolled everybody for the most part, except Ohio State. I think Wisconsin played them really close. Good on him. And so they bring in Kalen DeBoer, who is a really good coach. He does not lose football. I hate I need to wash my hair, but when I just watch it, especially after a workout, it gets so it just each strand seems to do whatever it wants. But they bring in Kalen DeBoer, who's just a good football coach. We'll see how the recruiting does. It's going great. And we'll talk about Keelan Russell here in just a moment. But the thought was he was going to have Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb went to the NFL. He went to the Seahawks. And then it was Nick Sheridan. And then it was not – look, Jalen Milroe – we'll talk about Jalen Milroe here in a second. Just not the easiest quarterback to plan around. But now they got Ryan Grubb back. So no excuse to not have the offense that I think they want to have here in Alabama. So let's talk about the QB battle. The expectation is it's going to be Ty Simpson. He's a former 5-star recruit. He's been around a long time. I have talked about Ty Simpson more than I have talked about my own grandfather in the last few years. I'm kidding, but it feels like it. It's going to be Austin Mack, who was a Washington commit and followed DeBoer to Alabama, and then Keelan Russell, who is one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback in the class from Duncanville, Texas. Number 2 overall player in the class, so the best player. So unbelievable. By all accounts, it seems like Ty Simpson hasn't done anything to lose the job. But I was listening to the 247 Summer School earlier today, and they had mentioned, he hasn't lost the job, but it might be a situation where it kind of starts as a game management type of role for him. And they have the receivers to do it. We'll talk more about the offensive line here in a second. And But that's kind of what we all thought Mac Jones was going to be. And then Mac Jones had one of the best years in, again, South St. Louis City. Wonderful. But then Mac Jones was unbelievable for them. And, of course, they had a Heisman wide receiver. That sounds familiar. So we'll see what happens with this quarterback competition. I fully believe week one, when they line it up against Florida State, it's going to be Ty Simpson. I think it's a bad spot to put Keelan Russell or Austin Mack in on the road in Tallahassee. Look, Florida State needs some energy. Like after going 2-10 last year, bringing in Alabama for game one, that'll do it. So we'll see. And that team should be better. Ty Simpson has only thrown 50 passes in his career, which is alarmingly low, even for a backup quarterback. So we'll see. It's an interesting QB battle. I think it's going to be Ty Simpson. I think it'll be Ty Simpson, in Columbia come October 11th. But we'll see. That game, his first real test, like Florida State on the road's a test. But Florida State's not what Florida State was even 2 years ago. Like Florida State's looking more like an 8-win team. But they go to Georgia on September 27th off a bye week. So we'll see what happens there, but it'll be fun. The expectations for this program, as we kind of get more into the rest of the roster, it has to be the playoff. There are concerns with the roster. For one, and this is even going back to when I did Bama post-game stuff, Jalen Milroe took a lot of the brunt of the run game last year. I have the stats even pulled up. I just tapped it. I was tired of looking at my phone, so I'm just tapping. Yeah, he led the team in rushing yards with 726, and he had 20 touchdowns. And he also had the most attempts. It's not going to be him this year. It's going to be Jam Miller, who went for 145 yards and 145 carries, 668 yards, 7 touchdowns last year. Not bad. He'll be followed by Richard Young, who 27 carries, 146 yards. They, of course, lost Justice Haynes. The run game for Alabama has not been great since Najee Harris. They had Brian Robinson, and they've tried a bunch of other guys. It has not felt the same. Part of that's the offensive line hasn't been the same. And it just hasn't been as explosive. It hasn't been as consistent as you would normally see from an Alabama Crimson Tide run game. And this is even under Saban. This isn't just a Kalen DeBoer thing last year. With who they are going to line up at quarterback, whether it is Austin Mack or Ty Simpson, I doubt Russell starts game one. That run game is going to have to be effective. It just has to be. Whether it's Jam Miller or whether it's Young, it's going to be effective. Now, on the offensive line, you do have some good parts. They have Caden Proctor at left tackle. He's probably the best NFL prospect on the team. He came back last year after flirting with – he did transfer to Iowa, and then he re-entered the portal and went back to Alabama. He's a really good player, obviously. He's now a junior. He's a big dude. I did not realize he was 6'7". I thought he was like 6'5". He's probably going to declare for the draft after this year. He could be like a top 10 pick. They, of course, lost Booker. They bring back Parker Brailsford, who sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Needs to get bigger, but he was a freshman All-American. He's a really, really, really good football player. He just is. He's just a good football player. I don't know what else to say. They bring back Jaden Roberts, who I know they like. He had injury issues all of last season, but I know they really like him. Left guard, it's probably going to be Vandermark, the transfer from, I believe it was Michigan State a couple years ago. They really like him. And then right tackle, it's a battle. Wilkin Formby, Wilkin Formby is the presumed starter. If you talk to any Alabama fan, they are very nervous about Wilkin Formby. He was not good last year, but it's going to probably end up being him. So it's a talented offensive line. I know 4 out of the 5 spots, at least from listening and reading, they really, really like what they have. They did not appear to be very aggressive in the offensive line portal, but as we've talked about, there's no real recruiting news to talk about, so I got to get this in now. It's going to be hard to find offensive linemen because teams are like, okay, you have to keep offensive linemen and you have to keep defensive linemen. So offensively, it's interesting. So then you go to their wide receiver room, and just with Ryan Williams, Jerry Bernard, oh, goodness gracious. That's insane because both of those players are really, really good. People did not realize that. No, I want receiving yards. Come on. Why did it put? Okay. Bernard went for 50 catches, 794 yards. He didn't finish that far behind Ryan Williams. He actually had more receptions than Ryan Williams did, which is crazy to think about. Okay, I call it weird college football reference thing. They keep putting somebody that is not the top at the top, whatever. No, their wide receiver room is just, it is crazy good. And you have, at worst, the second best wide receiver in the country. And they brought in Isaiah Horton, who had a really productive year last year with 616 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, and it's almost a 70% catch rate, 69, nice percent catch radius. Or catch rate, not radius, good Lord. So offensively, like, the pieces are there for Alabama to be a really good offense. How will it come together under Ty Simpson? That's the big key because, look, they might have the second best wide receiver room in the country. I just said I'm not sure about their running backs. Alabama has not had a dominant run game since Najee was there. And when you have Ty Simpson, who can run a little bit, but he's not Jalen Milroe, and Austin Mack, and those are going to be the guys, it's a little concerning. But we will see as the season wears on. I think their wide receiving room is so talented, though, it'll carry them through a lot of games. And we'll get through the schedule when we get back kind of towards the expectations portion of what I want to talk about here. Defensively, a lot of talent there. I was listening earlier, and they mentioned that a lot of issues came up last year with depth. They didn't really like their second string guys. They didn't really like their third string guys, and especially now that, you know, if Alabama wants to play for a national championship, they're going to play their 12 regular season games. They're going to play a 13th game, whether it's the first round of the playoff or it's the SEC championship game, and then they're going to play a quarterfinal. They're not going to play all of them, obviously. So they're going to win a national championship, you have to play 16 games. That is an NFL damn schedule for 18 to 22-year-olds. These kids are going to get hurt. They're going to get beat up if that's what your goal is. So you need the depth. Defensively, I think they did a much better job bringing in depth. They do return a lot. They basically return their entire secondary. I actually think their secondary has a chance to be really, really freaking good. Come on, college football reference. There we go. They bring back Bray Hubbard, who had 3 picks. They bring back Xavier Brown, who had 3 picks. They lose Malachi Moore. I do apologize. They don't bring back everybody. I do apologize. I'm looking. I see the 4 highlights, and it's still sometimes weird. Deshaun Jones might be or Drake Patrick Jr. might be the starter there. They bring back Keon Sabb, who is an unbelievable NFL prospect. They're back 5, their secondary should be really, really good. Alabama fans seem to have a lot of confidence in the coverage section of their defense. Up front, their linebacking room, really talented. Deontay Lawson, was injured last year, pretty severe way. They bring back Justin Jefferson. He was granted an extra year. And then they bring in Nikhai Hill-Green, who transferred from Colorado. Nikhai Hill, Mizzou fans will recognize because they recruited him really hard in the portal before pivoting then to Trotter and Mackay from Nebraska. They really wanted him, and he committed to Alabama. And unfortunately, if you're him, he committed to Alabama before it was said that Lawson and Jefferson were going to come back. So he went from starter of the Alabama Crimson Tide to now he's probably like that third linebacker in the rotation. In that middle linebacker room, because they also bring back Rosa, sorry. For what they want to do in Tuscaloosa, they don't bring back much on the defensive line except Tim Keenan, who is a freaking stud. He just is. I know a lot of people really like LT Overton. But he, if you look at like what's coming back on this Alabama defensive line, sack-wise, it's really nothing. Deontay Lawson had 2. Why is college football reference not working for me? Quindarius Robinson had 4. He's gone. Tim Keenan had 2.5. Lawson had 2. Jefferson had 2. Overton had 2. Just not a lot. And I understand like this is not the same attacking defense that it was under Saban and like Kirby and Saban and Golding and whoever. But it is a defense that really needs to play. Like this needs to be a dominant group. And towards the end of the year, it got better. I mean, I know that like the Oklahoma game wasn't great, but I thought they played pretty well against OU. I thought they played pretty well I played great against LSU. Mercer, who cares? They played pretty well against Auburn. And look, they lost to Michigan. Again, I just have a hard time caring about bowl results that aren't the playoff, which sucks, and I hate it. But thanks, ESPN. Thanks, Fox. Like, you guys made it where these bowl games just do not matter. So, okay. So the expectations, getting back to that, have to be the playoff. If you look at their schedule, they go to Florida State. They should win that one. They should. It's on the road. I think Florida State's going to it's going to be an energetic stadium. I think Florida State's going to be better this year than they were last year. I mean, it's hard to be much worse. Like, I think they're going to be a bowl team. It's in Tallahassee, but like you should win that game. I think my projections, I had that like as a 31-13 kind of game. They play Louisiana Monroe at home. They got Wisconsin at home. They should win both those games handily. God bless Wisconsin. I really still do think Luke Fickell's a good coach. This isn't a Wisconsin preview, but I still think Luke Fickell's a good coach. I just don't. I just don't know if they're going to have the patience to do what needs to be done at Wisconsin, which is this needs to be like a 5-6 year like overhaul, and then you can make a decision. But their schedule is just brutal. So, but they get Wisconsin at home. We'll see. And then they get into SEC play. They go to Georgia, brutal. Revenge spot against Vanderbilt. Look, if you lose to Vanderbilt, if they lose to Vanderbilt again, there is a non-zero chance Kalen DeBoer does not coach the next week in Columbia. We'll get into the game in Columbia in a little bit. You get Tennessee at home. Tennessee, I think it's fair to say, had a tumultuous offseason, losing your quarterback. But what I think people don't remember about Tennessee, I think there's become like this false narrative, because I don't think I'm really going to get a chance to preview Tennessee all that much. There's become this false narrative that like, oh, Nico led him to the playoff last year. No, it was Dylan Sampson and an awesome defense. Plus, with Josh Heupel's offense, Joey Aguilar's probably not going to put up the numbers that Nico had the potential to put up. But in his offense, I think any quarterback can at least put up numbers. So we'll see. But they go to Tennessee, and then the following week they go to South Carolina. That's going to be a brutal one. South Carolina feels they should have won that game last year. It's in Williams-Brice. It's around the time Beamer likes to turn it on. Like it's going to be that's a tough game. They get LSU at home. I am expecting LSU to be better than they were last year, despite losing a couple guys on the offensive line. They're always going to be talented at receiver, and they brought in some good transfers. I think LSU is going to be pretty good, but it's at home. Same with Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is going to be better, but it's at home. And then Eastern Illinois, and then you got that tricky. It's always weird at Auburn, man. Like, even if Auburn's bad, like, it's always weird. I don't need to get into it more than that. Alabama fans, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, just since I started the show in 2022, freaking you had the 4 overtimes, and it took a miracle for that game to even go to overtime. And then it took a Hail Mary to beat them a couple years ago. Just a weird place to play for the Alabama Crimson Tide. So if you look at that schedule, is 11-1 on the table? Yes. So I'll kind of give away the game here. I think they beat Florida State. I think they beat Louisiana Monroe. I think they beat Wisconsin. I think they beat Vanderbilt. I think they win at Mizzou. I think they beat Tennessee. I think they beat LSU, Oklahoma, Eastern Illinois. I think they win at Auburn. I think that's 10 games like they should be favored in by quite a bit, or at least like, a touchdown. Again, we'll see what happens as the season goes on. Like maybe Tennessee, Joey Aguilar finds a new roll. It's like, oh, Tennessee at this point, they're pretty good. Like maybe that's like a 6-point spread. LSU, Garrett Nussmeier becomes like a Heisman contender. Oh, like he's now Joe Burrow or whatever. But at this juncture, I think that's 10 games Alabama should at least be pretty favored in. You win those 10, you're in the playoff. It doesn't matter what you do in the 2 games I have not mentioned. It does not matter. You are in the playoff. They got to go to Georgia. They got to go to South Carolina. If you can split those, you're going to be playing for the SEC championship because Texas and Georgia play. So one of them is going to have a loss. Preferably, I think you would rather Georgia win that game. And then that game's also in Athens because Kirby complained last year, like, oh, you guys like the set because they had to go to Oxford, and they had to go to Tuscaloosa, and they had to go to Austin. And they won one of them. They won in Austin. And now it's like Kirby, like they all got to come to you next year, buddy. So why are you complaining? Anyway. But if you split those 2 games, I think you're in the SEC championship game. You're lining up a bye. You might be lining up number 1 team in the country. The schedule sets up nicely. I think there are a couple games that should be a little more concerning than I think Oklahoma or Alabama fans may be talking about. Again, that Missouri game and the Tennessee game, like back-to-back, like anytime you're in the SEC, it's a grind. But when you're all basically going into a revenge season like Alabama is, okay, you go to your bye week, and then and you're probably not going to be tested into your bye week. You go to Georgia. I don't think I need to say more. You got a revenge spot against Vanderbilt. It is a revenge spot. You cannot lose. If Alabama loses to Vanderbilt again, and Diego Pavia is a dog, man, like they're going to compete. I don't know if the game will be close. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what I think. Actually, I can't tell you what the score I think it's going to be like 41-17. But that's not me taking into account Vanderbilt's going to play better than what they are. It just isn't at this point. And then they go to Missouri, and that could be a letdown spot because the next week you could be looking at 10, and then the next 2 weeks you're looking at Tennessee and at South Carolina. So I think that Missouri game is a little bit more interesting than I think Alabama fans are going to give it credit for, and I'll talk about the reverse here in just a second. And then, I mean, that's really the only one because like the back 3 in their schedule are like. What other games are Alabama fans like, ooh, that'll be tough? Like they know Georgia's going to be tough. They know South Carolina's tough. LSU's probably going to be tough. They do play Oklahoma. And I think Oklahoma will be better, but I don't think Oklahoma's go into Tuscaloosa and win good yet. But like if you're Alabama, the expectation has to be 10-2 at bare minimum. At bare damn minimum, you better go 10-2 with this schedule. And you shouldn't lose any of your non-cons. So that's 6-2 in the SEC. Like and subscribe to listen to Missouri Tigers Live. This is our Alabama preview episode. The Crimson Tide do come to Columbia for the first time since 2020. The first time with fans. Has it been since 2012? Oh, my God. I was at that game. We'll get into it because I want to talk about this a little bit too. Kind of what this game means for Mizzou, because I do want to get into the Missouri aspect of this. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. You can listen to our shows live on Amazon, Spotify, or Apple, but let's go ahead and break it into the matchup. And I put matchup in lowercase. That's not what I wanted to do. So it is October 11th. The game is at 11 a.m. I know some people are upset about it. Look, I'm not happy about it because I think the fact that 11 a.m. games are now like a big thing. Like 11 a.m. Okay, when I was growing up, the 11 a.m. games were ABC had some garbage SEC or ACC game on, like Virginia, Boston College. Just something like it was a game. And if you're a dork, you were like, oh, these are 2 teams that could compete for a bowl. Whatever. ESPN had some crappy SEC game. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, or, Kentucky, Missouri, whatever, one of those kinds of games. And same with SEC Network. They usually had 2. Fox had a Big 12 game on. Insert Big 12, West Virginia, TCU. Cool, great, moving on. And Big And then there was there'd be a Big Ten game on ESPN2, and usually Big Ten West, Iowa, Northwestern. Now, that was kind of how it was. Like, and then later in the day, you got the better games. Now, because of Big Noon, like everyone wants to put big games at 11 o'clock, which is stupid, and it ruins things for fans. I don't mind I'm not saying no game should be at 11. You have to put games at 11, but I think big games should always be later in the day. However, I do understand, like, 11 a.m., like, that's a pretty, like, good spot for Mizzou from a respect, like, narrative point of view. Plus, I'm also assuming a little bit the narrative's like, look, we'll talk about it here in a second. These two teams, when they play, it's never been close. So let's get that game out of the way. So what other games are that day? So it's at 11 a.m. It's going to be in Columbia. I might go to that game. It's hard for me to do the show and go to games, so I don't know. I didn't go to a game last year. I usually try to go to one game. Well, now that I'm doing Mizzou, like when I did Bama, it was easier, but I'm not sure. Whatever. Who else plays that day? What's the other SEC games that day? Because our game's at 11. That is week 7. Yes, our game's at 11. You have Oklahoma, Texas. That's at 2:30. That'll always be it should be at 2:30. South Carolina, LSU, Georgia, Auburn. Those are and Arkansas, Tennessee, and Florida, Texas A&M. Those are all your night kicks. So fair enough. But it should be a good atmosphere. But I kind of want to talk about, like, okay, so since Mizzou has joined the SEC, they have played Alabama 12, 14, 18, 20, 24. So they played them 5 times. None of the games have been close. None of the games have been close for 4 quarters. So in 2012, it's Mizzou's first year in the SEC. They're beat to hell. Corbin Bergstresser starting football games. Bama goes out. Like, I remember too, like, whenever you go to a sporting event or you're watching your team play, you have to believe in magic, right? Like, especially when you're there in the stadium. Now, I obviously wasn't like, but I'm 16, 17, 2012, so I was a sophomore, so 16. And I'm just hoping for a good game. And I remember the first play, I think it was a Sheldon Richardson tackle for a loss. So it was like 2nd and 11. And I'm like, the crowd's going nuts. Like, it's stormy. Like, it's one of those. It's like, this is a chance to be a weird game. I don't know how used to Alabama was at the time of turf. It had a chance to be a weird game. And then, 2012, who was the running back? Eddie Lacy goes like 68 yards and basically scores. He might have scored. And from then, it was like 28-0. And Marcus Murphy returns a touchdown. Mizzou gets a field goal. Mizzou gets the ball back. So I'm like, 28-10. Like, we score a touchdown here. Like, we're right back in this thing. And then fumble, touchdown, game over. I was stupid in 16. Sorry. But it was a blowout. And I remember there was a huge thunderstorm in the middle of the game. Alabama fans mostly took over after that. And it was 28-0. So, like, fair enough. So then they replay again in 2014 in the SEC championship game. Alabama's the number 1 team in the country. Blake Sims, Amari Cooper, you know who. They play, and it's 21-13 going into the 4th. Mizzou's getting killed, but Matty Mock hits like 3 bombs to Jimmy Hunt, and I think they all were to Jimmy Hunt, to be honest. And it's 21-13. Bama gets the ball, and then I always like to call it, they go on an Alabama drive, like especially back then. It was like 5-yard gain, 4-yard gain, 6-yard gain, 4-yard gain, pass for 8 yards, 4-yard gain, like just like 14 plays. And like, it could be like 3rd and 3. And you're just like, they're getting this drive. Like then they would have like 1 3rd and 5. And you're like, oh God. And then DeAndre White would make a play or something. It was so stupid. And then Bama wins 42-13 because they do what Bama does. What was the next one? 2018 they play. Mizzou goes to Tuscaloosa. I was kind of already out on Barry Odom. He ended up pulling me back in at the end of the year, but they go to Tuscaloosa. Mizzou's missing 2 of their top 3 wide receivers. They're playing a couple freshmen. I think Jalen Knox was getting a lot of snaps. I think he had a touchdown too. And I'm like, I'm working Western Illinois football at that point, so I did not watch most of that game, but I'm like keeping track on my phone. And I'm like, oh, it's 13-10. Like, they're not getting killed. And then they end up getting killed 39-10. But this is going to be coping at the time. I was okay with that because 2018 Alabama was a flying death machine. And the fact that you went in there and you didn't lose by 60, great. They played in 2020. Alabama was up like 35-3 at one point. Mizzou had a couple like garbage time touchdowns. And then they obviously played last year. Last year, not fun, guys. Mizzou went into the game. Brady Cook was dinged up. You're going into Tuscaloosa. I don't think a lot of people had very high expectations. To Mizzou's credit, I think their defense played really well. You can argue with a wall if you disagree with me. I think Mizzou's defense played really well. It was 6-0, almost going into halftime. But this offense could not do a thing. And to be fair, they were led by Drew Pine and injured Brady Cook, who was 7 for 12 for 30 yards. So 2.5 yards per attempt. That's crazy bad. Their run game didn't do anything until garbage time, and they were shut out 34-0. Like, Mizzou doesn't get shut out. It's hard to shut a team out in college football. Like Milroe, 11 carries for 50 yards. Jam Miller, 11 carries for 48 yards. Justice Haynes, 8 carries for 79 yards. I do not recall it being that. And Richard, okay, that must have been like end of game stuff. I don't think the offense will put up as poor of a fight as they did last year, because last year that was just miserable. And it was sad to watch. I do think there's an opportunity for Mizzou to make this game competitive. However, I think it is going to be very difficult for me to convince myself that that'll happen. You have 5 games against Bama, none of them close. So I just don't have a lot of confidence. It's one of those things, man. Like, even Georgia, so Mizzou, Georgia was weird because like Georgia beat them in 20. Georgia killed them a bunch, obviously, but like the games were always a little funky. Like, they never looked quite right. Like 2015, Mizzou was miserable, and they lose 9-6 in Athens. They did beat them in 2013, and then 2014 was like 34-0. The Georgia game in 2014 was a lot like the Alabama game last year. Offense just couldn't do anything. The defense tried so freaking hard, but they just could not hold the fort. Like 2016 against Georgia, Mizzou has the ball with a chance to win after giving up a touchdown with a minute left to Isaiah McKenzie, and Jamon Moore fumbles. 2017, like, Mizzou's awful, but it's 28-21 in the second quarter, and Mizzou's just chucking up bombs. 2018 it's really competitive. 2019 doesn't matter because, like, I forget who's been playing quarterback. I think Taylor Powell was playing quarterback in that game. 2020, it's like 14-14, and then Georgia runs away with it. 2021, I think that was a normal one. I think Georgia won like 49-3, but I think Mizzou went up 3-0. And then 23 and 24, or 22 and 23, Mizzou obviously was really competitive with Georgia. It hasn't been like that for Bama, where like you look up and you're like, oh well, they're not getting killed yet. Like, that's weird. 2023 for Mizzou was a little different. Like, oh wow, like, you can kind of respect how they played in that one. That has not been the case with Alabama. It has just been nothing but murder. I'm sure Eli would like to beat Alabama, but I have I don't know, man. Like, the thing that really struggled for Bama last year was their pass rush. They were ranked 70th in sack rate and 74th in pressures per dropback. Like, their overall havoc rate, and this is from Rock M Nation, 43rd in the nation. That's not great. That's 110th nationally in D-line havoc. Kane Womack is a really good defensive coordinator, and in most other statistics, they were really, really good. There's a chance if Mizzou can make some explosive pass plays, Bo can run around a little bit, that they can make this a football game. I'm just not confident in it. If I had to pick like a score right now, I'd pick like Alabama 30, Mizzou 13, like 30, 31-14, 30-13, somewhere in there. I just have I don't have a lot of faith in Mizzou's pass game right now. there's so many articles, and you can be like, oh, Bo Prabula has aura and all this other stuff. I don't really care about that crap. Just get on the field and let me see you play football. Just play football. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game for Mizzou. I just don't. Maybe Alabama gets a new kicker, and their new kicker stinks, and he misses a couple field goals, and you get momentum. The key for Mizzou is going to be kind of like Vanderbilt last year, and Mizzou, I don't think this Mizzou team is like Vanderbilt wasn't even bad last year. Like they should have beaten Mizzou, whatever. But kind of like that Vanderbilt game last year, where you're in it in the fourth quarter because there's no pressure on you. This is why I don't understand this year. If Eli coaches like a coward this year, which he did at times last year, he did. Let's just be fair. I really like Eli, but there are times he coaches like a coward. Why are you punting on with Prabula and Ahmad Hardy? You should never punt on 4th and 2. It just shouldn't happen. But this year, if you coach like a coward, I just don't get it. What would be the point? And in this game specifically, Mizzou entering this game has a chance to be undefeated. They have the tough game against South Carolina, but I think the other games are UMass, Kansas, Central Arkansas, and this can't be game 5, is it? Let me think. I should know this off the top of my head. Let me scroll to Mizzou's page. That's Ole Miss. It's LSU. That's weird that it's like that. Okay. It is game 5 or game 6. So they should be game 6. So they should be 5, and they have a decent chance of being 5-0. So there will be some expectations thrust on them. They might be even a top 20 team. There should be no pressure on Mizzou in this game, man. All the pressure falls on Bama, especially if they had lost that Georgia game. Now, if you lose this one, that's a second loss, and you still got to go to South Carolina. You still got to play Tennessee. You still got to play LSU. You still got to go to Auburn. A second loss here would kind of ruin your season. So I think all the pressure here is on Alabama. It's going to be in every time Mizzou and Alabama play. It's just kind of how it works right now. I would love to see, what drives me nuts about Eli is go watch. If you're not an Alabama fan, if you're not a Missouri fan, you see this, and you're an Alabama fan, you don't have to watch the whole game, obviously. Watch the COVID year Missouri Tigers 2020 versus LSU, and look at some of the touchdowns and plays they run in that game. I got really excited watching that game, and Mizzou just didn't have they won that game. They just didn't have the athletes to really compete at a high level that year. But if you watch what Eli was doing from a play calling standpoint, it was aggressive, it was fun, it was creative. It hasn't been that. It's been more traditional the last couple of years. I would love to see him break it out in this game, but I guess we'll wait for October 11th because they'll need to pull it out against South Carolina too if they want to win that game. Yeah, like I said, I think if Alabama wins that game, it's just not been a pretty series for Mizzou overall. And if you're Alabama, coming from a Mizzou fan that used to run an Alabama fan page, this is a game you should win. That's a game you need to win. Columbia is an underrated place, but it's not LSU. It's not some of these other tough places in the SEC. So thank you guys all for tuning in. This was the Alabama preview episode. Next week, I believe it's Texas A&M. I should know the schedule off the back of my hand, but with SEC Media Days coming in, it's have you seen that meme where the guy's laying back in his couch and it's something happens and he starts leaning forward playing video games? That's me now. No, Auburn. Auburn's next. So we got Auburn. So if we're going through the schedule, on the 21st, we'll do Auburn. The 28th, we'll be doing Vanderbilt. On the 4th, we'll be doing Texas A&M. Obviously, I'm not here the 11th. The 18th, we'll do Mississippi State. And then the 25th, we will do Oklahoma and Arkansas. Because of that thing on the 11th, I might have to do a dual episode. I just thought about that. This thing was kind of just sprung on me. But it's a personal thing that I can't get into. So I'll figure it out. But we will have all the games, SEC games previewed. Thank you guys for tuning in to the 32nd episode of Missouri Live. I am Zach Ramelius. I will be here next week. Guys, we're about a month away from games. Like, that's super exciting to me. I hope it's exciting for you. I hope if you're playing NCAA, I hope you enjoy it. This is the MLB All-Star Weekend. If you enjoy that stuff, great. But we are getting towards the end of the offseason. SEC Media Days is kind of that time where it's like, all right, time to lock it in a little bit. So thank you guys all for being here. I will see you next week. We will preview the Auburn Tigers in what is an interesting year for Hugh Freeze. You guys all have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. MIZ.